Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Elephants. I'm your host, Destiny Farley. I know I said my last episode was my final episode of the season, but I'm actually adding one more, and this one will be my last episode, I promise. My guest today is Ameer Abdullah, who is a running back for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is Ameer's ninth year in the NFL, as he's also played for the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. So he has a substantial amount of experience in this industry compared to some other players. There's a few different topics I'll be covering with Ameer today, including stereotypes surrounding professional athletes, and we'll obviously be focusing exclusively on NFL players, and then also how demanding his job actually is on a day-to-day basis. So Ameer, could you please just briefly introduce yourself and start by sharing a little bit about your journey into the world of football?
Of course. Thank you for having me on. Like you said, my name is Ameer Abdullah. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. Pretty big football state, a state where every boy at some point in their life had a dream to play Division I big time and most likely NFL as well. So I would say I'm just a product of that, more so than anything. I think it's a good opportunity for a lot of guys to build friendships, build community. I've always been a big person about expanding your impact or expanding your reach with different networks of people, and football is a great way to galvanize and do that. So growing up in that kind of element really just cultivated my love for the game of football, and luckily it was strong enough for me to believe in myself to make it to where I am. I always think that belief is what carries you the furthest. So my journey has always been about like believing in myself in whatever situation I may be, and it's helped me go through and come out of some very adverse situations that I'm proud of.
Okay. So you talk about growing up in the South and specifically in Alabama, where it's a big football state. And I kind of wanted to ask, so did you know that football was always going to be your path, or were you ever, encouraged to pursue other interests that were more academic, or not that one's better than the other, but was that the only path that you saw for yourself from the get-go?
In the get-go, yes. I always just had a knack for making people miss. That was always my thing. I have a brother. We actually have the same birthday, but we're 4 years apart. He's 4 years older than me. It's crazy. So we're technically Irish twins. And I would just follow him everywhere. And anytime I played football, it was with guys who were 4 years older than me. So I got really good really fast because I was playing with guys who were older. So ever since I was in like second grade, I actually have this funny story where we had career day, and everyone was supposed to draw in like this construction paper, arts and craft, project, what they wanted to be. And I did. I made a football player. In fact, I wanted to be Michael Vick. I wanted to be a quarterback at the time. And I said I was going to win the Heisman. I said I was going to go and have my house on MTV Cribs, all these different things. My mom or my dad maybe still has this project, And that when I look back on moments like that, I realized, like, man, I always kind of, knew this was going to be a path for me. But as I've grown, it's really broken down to a more general and universal thing that I think that was in me that was bigger than just the action of football. And I think that's just the element of being a teacher or being someone that people can follow, an inspiration more so that really attracts me to life. So, as I've gotten older and I've been through so many different things with the game of football, I understand that football wasn't just it. It was what sparked the brain. Tupac said that he may not be the one that changed the world, but he may be the one that sparks the brain. Mm-hmm. And I think an idea is the biggest parasite that we can have because it just infests your mind, especially when you really believe in it. So I think football was the parasite in the sense that planted the seed for me to sprout and understand, like, now it's about like a more holistic viewpoint of being an inspiration or just teaching in any way that I can.
Mm-hmm. So the reason that I had asked that, and it's a little bit different in your situation because you grew up in a state that is a big football state. Would you say that that's probably one of the biggest football states in the country?
It definitely is. Population-wise, it's not as big as a lot of states. So people kind of sleep on it, But when you look at the athletes that are in, I think right now in the NFL, we have the 5th or 6th most guys from our state in the NFL. And when you compare that to like a Texas or a Florida or like a Georgia or even like Ohio or New York or California for sure, they have so many more people than us that if you look at it from a scaled view, we're putting out a lot of, players in the NFL. So it's all you got down there,
Yeah, proportionally speaking, they're putting a lot more people out. So that plays a role in this, and it'll probably change your answer to my question. But I had watched an episode back in high school, actually. I think it was like ESPN 30 for 30 or something like that. And in the episode, there was, I don't even remember what his position was, but it was a black man that was speaking about how young black men are only encouraged to pursue 2 avenues of success like regularly on a regular basis that are accepted, and it's sports and music. Do you feel like this is true? And like obviously it doesn't sound like that was your experience, but do you feel like race plays a role in it at all?
For one, I don't think that's necessarily true. Today speaking, I can see where some facets or sections of communities that may seem like the only route, but I'm sure if you looked at like any like CDC like study, it would definitely show differently. I think the reason why that's assumed a lot of times is because when it comes to entertainment, Black culture has been the leading front for such so much time now. That things like you hear like pop culture. A lot of pop culture was actually just things that were adapted from hip hop culture or quote unquote Black culture when it comes to music or entertainment. And when you look at most professional sports teams, majority of them are Black, African American or from some other country, but still Black or brown people. So I think when you have a large majority of your leaders, which we're a lot of times we're like radical materialists here in America. We're obsessed with material things, whether that's status or that's an actual car or jewelry. Those are the people that we deem as leaders. And when you have a high proportion of African Americans who are assuming the entertainment jobs, NFL, NBA, MLB, Dominicans, they're just Black, Latin American people. That can kind of be the wave that people feel like is the most exciting, but I think when you really look at the backbone of the Black community, a lot of it is in businesses, a lot of businesses that are established in the community. And it's sad that I feel like a lot of the imagery would say otherwise, but I would probably say no, that's not the reason why, but it's definitely a lot of God dang, I lost my train of thought right there.
No, you're good. You basically answered my question though. And I do think it probably depends on who you ask. But I wanted your perspective since you're obviously Black and a professional athlete.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to ask you about, speaking of like stereotypes and things like that, some of the most common stereotypes that you run into surrounding professional athletes. Obviously, we're going to be focusing specifically on NFL players. And of course, I'm not saying that I hold these beliefs or I feel this way.
Is this what you think about me?
No, this is not what I don't know. Maybe we'll see. These could be true about you.
Maybe.
But I guess we'll find out.
Could be.
But these are just things, that I've heard, I've seen, from being around athletes and witnessing how, like, especially women, but also men talk about them. I used to work at a day club, so, you probably meet athletes
Four
disproportionately.
out of 6 nights.
Yeah.
4 out of 6 nights.
Right.
We love clubs. We love clubs. Hey, man.
I know.
It's I think it's a deeper rooted thing than just athletes, honestly. We can get into that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But athletes, man, that's one way we like to enjoy our times is nightclubs. I don't understand it.
So for all the cleat chasers out there, you guys know where to go.
I mean, that's not a secret.
I know. But, so I want to go through a few different ones with you, and we'll end up breaking them down one by one in a second. But first, I just kind of want you to let me know on a scale from 1 to 5 how true these things are from your experience. So 1 being not true at all. There's no grounds for that stereotype whatsoever. It shouldn't even exist. And 5 being true almost 100% of the time with very few exceptions. So again, and this is just from your frame of reference because you've had, almost a decade in the NFL. You've been on different teams. You've had enough experience to kind of make this call. Not saying your word is the Bible or anything, but so the first one is that athletes are not intelligent. So that's why they use their body instead of their brain. 1 to 5.
Definitely a 1.
Okay.
Definitely a 1. I think this is probably going to be the most furthest to the 1 of all the questions you asked. I don't even know the rest of them, but definitely a 1 because it's just not true on so many levels. Of course, you have some people who aren't really interested in academics. They're not really interested in anything else but football, and that's one side of things. I think you have people who have interest in a lot of things in life, and that's all they're interested in. They're not really persecuted on the sense of like that's all they know. Like a mechanic or somebody like that. Like a mechanic is someone who's really good with his hands, really good with parts and understanding how to fix stuff. And I think that's a certain level of genius within itself. And I think football is no different than that. It falls along that same spectrum, where of course we give a lot of our time and our attention to playing a game. But it's a very strategic game. It's a lot of angles and geometry and a lot of different things that not only is your mind working at one speed, your body also has to follow that speed in like split-second decisions. And quarterbacks are amazing. What quarterbacks can do. And understanding the game is such an IQ level to really being great. Any of the great players I've been around, they see things before it happens. And you got to be a risk taker, but to be a risk taker, you got to be an ultimate studier, or genius in a sense. So, right. A lot of people who actually get done playing football, the people who actually set like a good routine for themselves throughout their careers, I feel like they do really good in business because they are disciplined already. They know how to make schedules for themselves. One thing I've saw a lot of my friends who didn't play NFL football when they got done in college, whatever, they didn't really have any foundation. They didn't really have much routine. So they're, in one place trying to, figure some things out. But a lot of guys who actually did play sports, they leave college and they're in a place where they're like, all right, well, at least I know how to get the hell up in the morning, just for starters and things like that. So I would definitely say 1.
Okay.
I'm about to say 1.
I'll circle back on that in a second. Second stereotype is that they're superficial. So satisfied by material things, not really in touch with themselves on a deeper level. Maybe not a whole lot of deeper spiritual thinking going on, just kind of surface level existence. 1 to 5 on that one.
Oh, man. Definitely would say, I'll say 2.5.
Really? I still feel like that's low.
I think that's low? Okay. I mean,
it's your experience.
Honestly, I'll probably say 3, to be honest. I'll say 3 to be fair.
Because
I cut out my bias here.
I have my experience too. So
okay, and we can definitely talk about that. But I would say 3, because we are superficial. I think part of our job and our entire identity as our entire lives has been about our body. It's been about how good are we, how fast are we, how high we can jump, how physically imposing we can be. So naturally, I think that helps, that really cultivates a physically conscious person, someone who's like conscious or self-conscious almost at times about their body. I dated another athlete. I've only dated one other athlete in my life, someone who was at the same level, I would say, in the sense of like what I'm doing. And it definitely was, we both struggled every day. I remember our conversation sometimes just like, oh man, look at my abs are gone. This is happening. My legs getting skinny. And, those are superficial things. Those are very surface level things that I don't think it's so much that like we're full of ourselves. We're just very aware of our bodies. That's what makes us better athletes than the average person. We're hypersensitive to movement, to balance, to reaction. So, if you're that tapped in with your body, you can feel your body a lot differently than people. I tell my mom all the time, like, man, I feel my body differently than you, or like the average person. And I think that will make you a superficial person. But also, yeah, man, I think especially in the NFL, you got a lot of young dudes who's never had money before. And a lot of times the best way to make yourself feel better is to put something else on, to really hide maybe some of the hurt or pain necessarily that you've endured throughout your life. So the ice will help, right? They say ice helps the swelling. That's why a lot of people get the diamonds. That's why a lot of people get the ice, So it's an interesting thing because deep down I know, because I've made some gluttonous purchase before. I've never been a jewelry person, but I remember when I first got in the league, I got like this super expensive luggage set. Just because, when you travel with the team, everyone has their luggage. And I was really worried about, like, if I got some fucking Target, suitcase, what they gonna say about me, And then it took me a long time to break out of that, like, yo, who gives a shit? You won. You spend less money, But, I can definitely see a lot of, 20-year-old guys who now have, a couple $100,000s or a couple millions, in their pocket, thinking like, okay, I can, kind of spend off. So
yeah. Okay. So you said 3 for that one, and then the first one you said 1. Third one kind of, I guess, ties in with what we were just talking about, is that they're irresponsible with money. So this one's actually rooted in fact. There's a statistic on it, and we can get into it later, but I still want your perspective on, just from you being around other athletes, and especially because you have some years. So
I would say on average about a 4. Definitely say about a 4 on average. And it's weird because a lot of people are very hard on athletes just in the public eye. That the expectation for us is very high, and people's cop out is a lot of times you signed up for it, which is true, but it's like I didn't know a lot of the backlash and scrutiny would definitely come with it. You know what I mean? But I would definitely say a lot of guys. For one, when they get a lot of this money, they're very young people. I think that's something I want people to hear. Like these sometimes, like when I got in the league, I was 20 turning 21. I had turned 21 that summer before my first season. Or I maybe just turned 22. Super young, I never really had anything over, $2,000 in my life at one time in my bank account. And now you have a lot more money and you're just expected to be financially responsible, and a lot of guys do things like they get financial people, and sometimes those very financial people are the ones who, mess them over. But, at the end of the day, the statistic rings out that, this many people went broke, but it doesn't always tell you how, and I know a lot of guys, I think the irresponsibility with the money a lot of times comes from actually helping out family. More so than anything, I see a lot of guys who are supporting their mom's mortgage. Maybe this person's car note, this person's phone bill. And what happens is, we get paid throughout the season, so you get paid weekly for each week of the season. But once the season's over, you're not getting paid unless you're, big, off the field market guy like a Travis Kelce currently, or like a Tom Brady, or the real superstar guy. So a big majority of people aren't that. So people's spending habits don't change from the season to the off season. And those are very simple things that, as a young man, if you're never really taught that, that financial literacy in the sense, it's very easy to, income tax season hits you and you're like, holy shit, I owe well, how much money? I've spent all my money. I don't have any, now you're asking for loans, it's crazy. There's so many stories I've heard guys, after their first year, in the league, they need a loan in the off season. And it's like, man, how do you get here? So I would definitely say that's a strong 4.
Yeah. It sounds similar because like I mentioned, I worked at a day club for a few years before this. I actually worked there when I was 19 years old as a lifeguard. So while I wasn't waitressing at that time, I was still around like those people in that industry. And it's a similar lifestyle where you work 7 months out of the year. It's seasonal, at least for day club. Nightclub is year round. But even like the nightclub is year round and they have slow season during the holidays and all that. And the money's inconsistent because you're getting paid tips. So you make, it's not, the money's pretty consistent, which is why people do it, but it's not consistent in terms of like the amount that you're getting paid. So like in the day club, it's March to October and you're making these big checks every 2 weeks, but then you got to think about the off season. Like if you're not planning on working or if you don't have something else lined up, then you're not really making that much money every 2 weeks. You have to spread that out across not 7 months, but 12 months. And there's also not a lot of job security. So I feel like it could be similar to what you guys experience because you have to, you guys have contracts that are a little bit longer, but we would have to re-audition for our job every single year, no matter how long we worked there. And you're an at-will employee, and it's very superficial, so they get rid of you for all kinds of reasons. And people build up this lifestyle, of oh, I'm making all this money, I can afford to do this, do that. Same thing where they're pulling young girls in that are freshly 21, 22 years old. And they develop these spending habits, maybe buying designer or getting a lot of work done or living in a nice area, going a Lifetime, like this lifestyle that is not sustainable if you don't have a degree.
Right.
And what happens if you don't get your job back? Then you can't afford to pay any of your bills or things like that, So that's what money does to you.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it like raises this sense of like self-worth where you start to say, I deserve it a lot more. You start to say, like, I deserve it a lot more. And I think that's a very slippery slope. And I slipped down that slope, before, where I looked up and I had all these freaking apps I was spending, stuff on. I was just carelessly buying clothes at any time of the year, just because I wanted them, not because I really needed them. And really just changing, what I wanted to like what I really needed was a big wake up call for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Last one is that NFL players are players, so can't commit. Stop. It's not even accurate. Can't commit to a woman because they have a wandering eye. There's easy access to women. There's maybe a culture of infidelity, cheating on spouses, girlfriends, wives. Struggling with commitment altogether. What 1 to 5?
I would say about 3 in my experience, about middle of the road.
That's more than the middle.
What do you say?
That's more than the middle. 2.5.
Can we do the halves?
If you
Okay, I'll say 2.5. I would say it's 2.5. I've been fortunate to play with guys who, I think, what happens a lot of times is when it comes to like media, when it comes to big entertainment, which football is pretty big entertainment in this country, the bad is reported more so than the good, just like I'm sure a lot of people think athletes just beat their girlfriends. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
But
I got
because of the Michael or not.
I mean, it's been a few cases. Not saying they don't,
yeah.
but I definitely feel like it's I wouldn't say over sensationalized, but it's to a point where like it's just assumed, which I wouldn't say that tells the the whole story. I just feel like the bad gets reported more so on the good, and I think this kind of carries weight a little bit in this area. In my experience, most of my teammates are married. Most of them are married, and they're like committed. Married, and they're like growing, together. I think what happens is a lot of the young, football players do what like young guys do, not really making an excuse, but they do dumb things that they typically grow out of, And I think it says more so about like the generation of that they're occupying, like the space they're occupying a little bit, like from the age of like 18 to 22, 24 really. I just don't really see too much of a point of, trying to necessarily date if you're a young professional. Like if you're freshly in the NFL and you're like 20 to 24, unless you really got somebody who's been rocking with you for a long time, I don't really see the point of dating because I think it's a big distraction. And I think, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the young guys, I expect them to be like outside in a sense. You know what I mean? I expect them to be outside. Like if they ain't got a girl or whatever, I expect them to be outside. But I don't know. What's your take on it? I need some volley. I need to volley a little bit.
We'll get there.
Okay.
I kind of want to circle back and dive a little bit deeper into some of them. I have plenty of thoughts, so you won't have to ask me again.
Cool.
I promise. So I want to circle back to what we were talking about with intelligence. Where do you think you fall on the spectrum compared to other players? Would you say, I'm sure being older matters.
Damn.
But not like old.
Shit. Fuck you.
Being older, not
Damn.
old. Okay, I didn't say old.
No, I'm kidding.
But, you know, when you have people coming into the league as 21-year-olds, being 29 is a difference. So it makes a difference. 30. Okay, I tried to give you a year. You exposed yourself.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I gotta live my truth. You know,
being 30 definitely makes a
this shit
difference.
feels good, man.
So where do you think you fall on the spectrum of intelligence compared to your peers?
I think I'm more wise than I am knowledgeable.
Okay, you want to elaborate?
I know how to apply my knowledge more. You know, it's a lot of people who are intelligent. It's a lot of people who are knowledgeable, but I think over time I've grown in my discernment and I've grown in just my understanding of myself that I'm pretty wise. I would say I'm on the wiser side of the NFL's population.
Okay.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I know more than, you know, there's some really smart guys. There's some really smart guys in the NFL. I mean, like.
Who are some of the most intelligent players that you've met?
That I've ever met? Let me think.
That are memorable to you.
Memorable. Starting off last year, Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins is a very intelligent guy. In fact, if you go to his social media, every Friday he does a Fast Fact Friday. That's kind of tough to say.
Tongue twister.
Yeah, he does it perfectly. But he's just always giving people tidbits about mental health or different things in the world. This guy Greg, he's an old lineman on our team now. He went to Penn, so that's like, you know, Ivy League.
Right.
Let me think who else I've been on. Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks is another guy. He plays actually for the Chargers. We just played yesterday. Really smart guys. It's been a lot of really smart guys I've been around, and very witty individuals. Football is interesting. Guys are that they kind of have this certain cynicism about them when in their humor, where like it's kind of this dry humor because everyone's kind of, it's like we're all trauma bonding. We're always freaking tired and we're always just understand each other. So like some pretty smart guys I've been around in the NFL.
Yeah. Do you feel like people underestimate you and assume you're unintelligent when you tell them you're an NFL player? Like if it's people outside the league or just, you know, interactions, do you get that vibe or do you feel like people are pretty understanding and open-minded?
It depends on where I'm at. Really depends on where I'm at. But I felt it before.
Yeah.
Until I really speak to someone and they really get to know me, they don't really understand that I play football. I love football, but I have so many different, you know, things going on in my life and so many things I'm building currently that I know will be consistent pillars for me in life that it kind of shocks them to see the depth and the multifaceted dimensions that, you know, I kind of juggle at one time.
Yeah.
You know? But I've definitely been in a fly in a room where, you know, I've kind of gotten into this one friend group that's accepted me as like, oh, but he's different.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, they will talk bad about some of my peers who are in NFL, guys I may not know, but they're still my peers, you know, my frat brothers in a sense. So it's like, man, it's crazy how the normal person really thinks about us. They think we're rocks. They really think that we're rocks. We think that we are smart people. I'm like, dude, you know how hard it is to be, and I'm so tired of hearing this excuse when they say like, oh, they didn't do their schoolwork in college. Yes, the hell you do.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to juggle your college football schedule and being a full-time, you know, athlete, student. Like, it takes a lot of discipline. You know, it takes a lot of, you know, resolve, really. You know, and some of these dudes, again, like mechanical engineering degrees and like really, you know, complex degrees. And I'm just like, man, I don't know if it's the movies. I don't know if it was Disney. I don't know who to blame, but
yeah,
it definitely somewhere people just don't think, you know, people don't think that you're being athletic and like Christian McCaffrey's another guy, man. Christian McCaffrey, I played with him for a little bit when I was in actually Carolina. So Carolina was like half a year though. So I've been on 3 teams before coming to the Raiders, but he's one of the smartest guys I ever met. Dude plays the piano, dude plays the harmonica. He's also just like very well versed in like venture capitalism. You know what I mean? Like, dude is he invests in films and all these different things. I'm like, man, no one else is just doing this. You know, like
Yeah.
it takes someone who can have the endurance to kind of compartmentalize their life in a sense. You know,
Right.
I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. You know, I think who you are sometimes is who you should be all the time, but that's not always true. And I think the athletes who are able to perform at a high level on the field or on the court or wherever, and also still bring this zest for business or for other things in life, just shows genius in itself.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I was gonna give you your flowers and let you know that that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, is because you can tell just from your social media that there's more going on, because you post a lot of content with film and things like that, which we like to box people in. It's just a human thing to do. It helps us compartmentalize. It's how our brain works. A lot of it's involuntary. You have to actively work to fight against stereotyping. It's
Right.
just a survival instinct. We have to quickly process things and assess people. It's primal. So I watched this speech one time. I have it saved on TikTok because it was a man. I don't know if he was graduating from the school, if he was someone that was like working at the school, but his speech was about how the smartest person in the room is often the nicest person in the room, because when you're wired biologically to see in groups and out groups and stereotype people and disagree with people that don't have the same opinion as you, to be empathetic and kind takes intelligence. It takes you stepping outside of your own frame of reference to be able to see, oh, there's people that aren't like me, and it doesn't mean that they're a threat. It takes higher level thinking and processing. So anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but we like to box people in, and you do your film stuff, and that's you don't usually see those two things going together, athlete and film. So when this kind of ties in with the second stereotype about being superficial, because I would say on average I've run into that pretty frequently. I have had conversations with plenty of athletes. Not all of them are like that. I met Richard Sherman once at the day club when I was 19. Super nice guy, super intelligent.
Very smart.
Didn't get that vibe from him at all. Then you meet some rocks. There are some rocks out there. There's some people that they don't think any deeper. They don't think past themselves. They're very selfish. There's no like emotional connection with themselves. That's like super, super common. I see that. I guess that's more of like a common trait within men in general, but especially when you get to the level of being a professional athlete and having all these distractions and things like that, to run away from your feelings, kind of like what you were saying. However, I don't get that vibe from you. I don't get the vibe that you're superficial. Maybe you were at one point and I just caught you at the right time. Maybe it just comes with years and with age.
Monday? Yeah, I'm only superficial on Wednesdays.
Oh, okay, good. I caught you at the right time.
Great time.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you seem pretty connected to yourself and your spirituality. I see you post stuff about, meditating. I don't know everything that you do, but I see you posting like a lot of like physically active things that you do to be in touch with your body. I don't know, maybe I think I saw something on there about yoga. Can you tell me some of the things that you practice to stay down to earth? Or I don't even know if you're spiritual, if that's what it's connected back to. But
yeah, I think before you can really go out into the world, everyone should kind of check in. Check in. That's where prayer. That's where meditation really plays its biggest role for me in my life. I try to give time for at least 10 minutes before, I leave my house to, thank God, thank Source, however you want to acknowledge that presence, for breath. I do breath work, meditate in the morning to just connect yourself and get kind of a barometer of, where you are heading into every day. I think so many times that because just shit, you can blame it on capitalism, I guess. We're always working, so we're always on these schedules that we just become functions over time, and we don't treat our body, we don't treat our minds, we don't treat our heart, we don't treat our spirituality as if it's actually existing. And I think that shunning of the inner voice or that inner source really helps forces people to get older faster. I think it forces people to die faster. Honestly, like it's like your inner candle is almost dwindling out, in a sense. So a lot of things that you see me post on Instagram is that vocal expression of that understanding. Whether that's going on solo trips to Iceland. I went on a solo trip. I love
Iceland.
Man, Iceland is unbelievable. Amazing. I want to go back in the summertime. I went in the wintertime.
I went in the summer.
Went in the summertime? Mm-hmm. I want to go back in the summertime. I went in the winter because the northern lights are the most visible in the wintertime. The sunrise doesn't come up till like 11 a.m. and then it goes down at 5. So it was cool, but I did a solo trip just to really challenge myself, put myself in, for one, different climate and vacation differently. I think everyone thinks vacation like tropical weather, making it warm. I was like, man, let me get comfortable with being uncomfortable, being in a place I have no clue about, getting used to terrain that I don't typically survive in. And it was one of the most transformative things because every single day I had to kind of work with nature, for one, because nature is unbiased, it's violent too. And I think our nature is violent. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we show up sometimes can be very violent on the inside. And I think a lot of us, because we're just functions, we have a hard time just expressing that naturally. Women and men alike. A lot of us are culprits of that. And getting in touch with that is the first step of realizing that that's a thing. Just because you don't talk about it, or just because you're not, voicing it, doesn't mean it isn't going on. A lot of times it's, festering and becoming larger,
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that connection for me really came after one of the biggest life-changing things that's happened to me. I've had a pretty good life. I dislocated my foot my second year in Detroit, and initially I wasn't sure if I was ever going to play again. It was that kind of surgery. I still have 2 screws in my foot now from it, and it was a time where I kind of had the blanket ripped off of me, and I was really revealed of like what was I building my foundation on. And I wouldn't say it was completely on being an athlete because I have such a loving family. That family was really, important for me and supportive. But outside of, what I felt like I had created or given to the world, I felt very naked, And the only way I felt like I was going to warm myself up was to really get to know myself. So I've really been on a journey to get to know myself every single day, and not just letting the little things pass by anymore. I'm a lot more attentive to that. And I think a lot of people will progress in life a lot further, faster, expeditedly if they start more internally.
Yeah. Iceland is one of those places that just does that to people. Like that wasn't my first time out of the country. That was my second time out of the country. But I went there with my brother, and I think back on that trip, I feel like there's something special about that place because I hear nothing but good things, and because it's so like untouched by humans, and I think they only have a population of like 300,000 people or something insane.
I never saw people.
Yeah, and I did a different trip than you probably did. I want to go back so bad because the island is big, and they have, you can go from one end of the island to the other and see like every terrain that there is on Earth. Volcanoes.
I did my best. Yes, I did my best to do it all.
Glaciers,
yeah.
all of it.
I hiked the glacier when I was there.
That's awesome.
Man, shit was scary.
Yeah, so I didn't get to do all that. I want to go back and do it. But everyone basically lives in Reykjavik. Mm-hmm. So they don't, there's not like a ton of people, and it's so different. Like you feel like you're on another planet.
Oh my
and
goodness.
You're so connected to the nature because it's so like, it's not like going to Hawaii. It's not like going and being on a beach where the water's super clear. Like there's something primal in you that connects to being there because
it's raw.
It's so raw.
Like sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like the black sand beach on the southeast side. Did you get to go there?
Mm-hmm.
Man, when I went there, it was a windy.
Me too.
And it was a violent day.
Me too.
Like, the water was crashing against the rocks. And it was beautiful to watch from a distance because I'm like, wow, nature has to do this. It really just showed me the connectivity of everything in the world because I just think about like, okay, this water's crashing off this shore way up here in the north, but I'm pretty sure that ricochet is affecting something way on the east or way in the south. And just knowing that all these oceans are really connected, but they're so different for specific reasons. Yep. I look at my vessel the same way, you know, and I think when you start to spend more time in nature, you know, like you were saying, in those very like different outer world type places, you start to realize like, man, my body is a world. I need to treat my body the same way that, you know, I'm looking how pristine this, you know, glacier is or volcano is right now. I should look at it with the same amazement. And like I said, I think a lot of us are just living with our heads down right now. Like go to work, function. You know, it's like, man, we don't look up and be like, man, I am a world. Right. You know?
Yeah. And I think back on that trip and I remember like specifically feeling like I've never felt this happy ever in my life.
Gosh.
Same. Yes. I literally felt like a child again. Yes. Like when you feel like you're not worried about shit, like everything's going to be fine. It's literally just like, if I haven't done like ayahuasca or any drugs or shit like that, but well, I've done stuff, but not ayahuasca, nothing like intense like peyote or those super visceral out of body experience that you have from those type of drugs. I feel like I got that naturally by being there. I had this moment where I was like, everything is going to be fine. Like I just overthink everything. I'm making things way bigger than they are. This is all that matters, is literally feeling like this for the rest of my life. Yeah. And it's a choice that you can make.
It is.
And I haven't made that choice since I've been back.
I might move to Iceland.
I want to retire there.
Did you go to Blue Lagoon?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to. Oh, the Blue Lagoon when it's cold outside is the best natural contrast. So I was there and it was like probably 15 degrees, you know, during the day it get up to like 25, but in the morning it was like 15 degrees. So like I would go into that natural hot spring and then come out and sit for a while and get back in. Oh my god! I got goosebumps again. It would feel so good. That was my happiest point, being in that water.
Yeah. See, I was in a lagoon too when that happened. It wasn't Blue Lagoon, but it's funny that that's where you felt like that, because I felt like it was called Sky Lagoon.
Sky Lagoon.
Yes, did you go?
No, I didn't, but it looks beautiful.
You should have gone. It's literally like, for people that don't know, it's
like an infinity pool.
It's an infinity pool over the ocean. And they have like, it's a bunch of different steps. So it's you get in and it's like a lagoon, and then it's the infinity pool. So you look over and it's the ocean, and you have the combination of like the hot, like the heat from the water, and it's cold outside. Yeah. And then they have a cold plunge. And then you do a sauna, a steam room, a cold mist room. Like you're going back and forth, kind of like a retreat. And I was literally like swimming around that. I was also drunk, but I was like having a moment where I was like, I'm never going to fucking leave.
Yeah,
like,
no, that's a special place.
Yes.
Shout out to Iceland.
I know. Tangent there. Yeah. Anyways, did you go through a period of time where you felt like you were superficial, or do you feel like you've always kind of been more down to earth and connected?
I went through a time of, I think a lot of my superficial moments in life came from true insecurities. Like being insecure that I wasn't enough for my partner. That was a big thing, you know, for me, like growing up. Being the youngest, naturally you compete. You know, you're competing for attention. You're competing for food, you know, in a sense or whatever. And I hate to use this word because it's overused, but like toxically competitive, you know. But the competitiveness was more so self-deprecating, I would say, than it was like you know, like actually competing with someone else. I would see competition, then I would be self-deprecated in myself, like, dang.
Yeah,
I don't really believe in myself. So in response, I would try to buy something or like present myself a certain way to be super, on the surface, received more attractively or more just like alluring, you know, in a sense. So I'm a big believer that a lot of, I mean, this isn't not to anybody, but I think a lot of these superficial characteristics come from insecurities a lot of times.
Definitely.
You know, and the thing about being an athlete a lot of times is it's a very competitive job market as it is. You know, new roster every year, and there's so many athletes that it's so easy to get into the game of comparison. You know, and everyone wants to be that guy. You know, everyone wants to be a superstar. Everyone wants to do the best they can. And when you get to like, you know, the NFL, sometimes it's about really putting out the best roster and like knowing your role, you know, a lot of times.
Right.
And that can be really tough for a lot of guys. You know, I definitely know for me early in my career, that was really tough. You know, I didn't really have, in my opinion, the best guidance, you know, when I was older. I didn't really have too many vets. You know, I could definitely tip my hat to Theo Reddick. You know, Theo Reddick was a guy who really took me on his wing. Drake Bell at times, for sure, with the Detroit Lions. But I didn't really learn how to be a pro, you know, until like, I would say like year 4. And I think a lot of that came from the superficial competitiveness that was, you know, surrounding the culture. You know, a lot of times where guys don't want to help you out too much because they're competing with you. And,
Right.
you know, in that sense, that would make you a little insecure of like how you should, you know, present yourself, because you know no one wants to come off as like the guy that no one wants to talk to or you know, compete with or like share a locker room with, more so than anything. So I was very much in my head during that period of like being perceived the right way as opposed to just living my life. So yeah.
Okay. Kind of moving on to this next one in regards to athletes being bad with their money. The statistic is that over 70% of pro athletes go broke shortly after they retire. So pretty significant. Like we talked about, they go broke for different reasons, and it's not always just because they're superficial and spending a bunch of money. I know that especially if you came from poverty or a low-income household, you don't have financial literacy. Like the cards are super stacked against you. Does the league offer any kind of financial services or encourage it, or is that like a completely separate?
No, it's offered by our players union. You know, there's a lot of off-season programs that people can do. Like me, I'm into film. So last off-season, I went to an externship that the NFL has a partnership with William and Morris, and I think where were we at? I forgot which production company we were at in LA, but it was a wonderful experience. You know, I got hands-on experience of directing a set.
That's awesome.
Being in the editing room, acting a little bit, and I do all those different things. You know, I've acted before, I've directed, I shoot myself. You know, I've DP'd myself. So having that experience was great for me because it not only gave me the experience of like understanding what, you know, set design looks like, and you know what a daily schedule looks like if you're shooting a show or something like that, but it also gave me an opportunity to make networks with people who can potentially help me, you know. And I mean, there are a lot of programs that the NFL offers, but to specifically get to, you know, the point what you said, 70% of, you know, guys go broke shortly after they get done playing. I think a lot of it just has to do with, you know, just call it what it is. A lot of guys go through a period of like rediscovering themselves when they get done. You know, it's kind of like losing a wife in a sense, something that you've been, you know, with, something that you've built with since you were 8. You know, I first started playing organized football when I was 10. You know, that's 20 years ago for me. So I've been playing, you know, organized football for 20 years of my life. And when it's gone, it's not as easy just to be like, all right, you know, I'm going to transition to something else and, you know, get that going. And I think, you know, just doubling back to what you said, during that period of like self-discovery, it's really important to get your spending habits in order because you're not making the same amount of money, obviously, that you were when you were playing. And I think that's where you see a lot of guys go have trouble is, you know, the things, how they were spending on a monthly rate compared to, you know, currently when they don't have NFL employment is a lot different. And that's always the toughest thing, you know, to really think about, you know, because I'm still in it, you know, right now. You know, I have other things, other ventures I've started for myself, like, you know, real estate, investing in real estate and things like that. But really, like, what would that really feel like? You know, what would that really be like? You know, I would like to think that I'll be okay, But will I? I don't know. I think sometimes it's a little insensitive on the side of, the outside looking in of just like, man, that's a big change, man. Like your whole life. Like think about it. You go from high school to college and now you're in the NFL, and it's like your first time really getting a crack at life. Like my entire 20s, I've been playing. I'm not living in the real world. I tell people all the time, like, man, yeah, the things that we relatively deal with are sometimes bullshit, like the how much the revenue share between the owners and the players and things like that, how much they make more than the players. Yeah, that's bullshit, but that's very relative. It's very first world. We live in a very first world reality. I'm gonna be real. Like, this life is a lot easier in a sense of like compensation. Now in your body, shit's tough. And we pay for that later. We definitely do,
Right.
But I'm gonna be real. I'm not really living in reality yet. And to have your reality switch like that, I can understand why guys, go broke, because not everyone's millionaires.
Right.
I think that's the first thing to really sort out is the NFL is kind of a reflection of America. You have the 1%, and then you have this crazy middle class that's kind of weird, and then you have a very big lower class.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? With the new amendments that we agreed to in our last collective, with two collective bargaining agreements ago, you have this dichotomy now where quarterbacks are getting paid so much of the salary cap that it's only so much money to split between 52 other guys. So you got, guys who are some of your core guys not getting paid as much as they probably should. And you think, after taxes and after paying for bills and all these things, most people, it's a lot more hundreds of thousandaires than it is millionaires in the NFL.
Right.
It's not like the NBA. NBA, they get paid. Them boys is getting paid, which is crazy.
Right. I didn't know that there was a difference like that in the league.
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's definitely a big difference, and then like the average career is only 3 years. So I think that goes into also that statistic where it's like, these guys are, getting in the league and they only see a rookie contract, which is sometimes over $1 million. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's not. You may get like a 4-year deal that's worth $1.7 million, which is like you break up $1.7 million pre-tax over 4 years. That ain't that crazy of a contract, or a deal. And I think a lot of people just see us on TV and they're like, oh, man, these guys are all millionaires. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I'm very grateful that I've been in the league now for 9 years and I've been able to make a good living. But, I'm not the normal story, and I think that is what should be focused on a lot more. It's like the people who aren't because that's the majority. That's really the majority. So, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to this last stereotype. As far as
the ladies,
as far as your peers being players, is there a culture of infidelity or cheating that is accepted? Like if someone talks about cheating on their girlfriend or their wife, how is that received by other members of the team? Is it kind of turn a blind eye? It's not my business. Is it encouraged? Like, what's the response there?
This is always a tough one because yes, we cheat, and then yes, at the same time we don't. You know what I mean? I think it's once again a reflection of America. It's like probably the same amount of guys who cheat out who aren't athletes are reflective of the guys who do cheat in the NFL, then vice versa. You know what I mean? It's like wherever you cut it, you got some who do, you got some who don't. But when it comes to the actual culture that's allowed in the locker room, that's another thing. It's tough, and I would be lying if I would say like I'm a guy that's like stepping down on people talking about they're doing the things. It's kind of like people's own business, and you just hope that they find their own way. Mm-hmm. With time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I've had relationships that I've been cheated on, and I've cheated on myself. You know what I mean? So like, but it's about like really finding your own way and finding who you are. Because when you find who you are, you're not going for that type of shit no more. You know what I mean? You're just living a different life that's just like, the only way I'm gonna get what I want out of life is to live true, and that is a law to me. I really think that what you're giving into life is what you're going to get back. And if you are cheating life, then you're going to get short end of the stick type of things when you're trying to come up big. Yeah. And you can be looking like, damn, why didn't I come up? It's because somewhere in your life you're not living 100% true, and it's a very hard thing. I think that's that's like a religion in itself, being true, And in moments where guys aren't being true in the locker room, I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm like, hey man, you should be true, but it's definitely not probably what people think. It's not like it was this one TV show back in the day called The Game. It was on BET. You remember that show?
I think I've heard of it. I don't know if I watched it.
It was a football show, and it was super dramatized, of course,
Like all.
Or like Ballers, like the show Ballers. You ever seen Ballers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably people most likely sensationalize in their mind and think everyone's like, yo, look at this girl on my phone. That's not the culture. I can 100% tell you, the NFL is not like people in the locker room just girl talk and all that stuff. In fact, I don't think guys in general actually talk like that. I think women actually talk about what they got going on, involvement with their partners more so than guys. We actually just don't even talk about that type of stuff. But if it does come up in a conversation of just hey man, it's this one girl, I just met her, and you may be thinking you got a chick, don't it? Or something like that. Just don't put me in your bullshit a little bit. I think that's really where I draw the line of just don't have me in their face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being hella cool with them and then expect me to also, be cool in another. Because then I would just distance myself. And I think that's usually how I handle those situations. Just I'm not going to get in the middle of it, but I can't hang out with you like that because you compromising me now. Now I got to act. Now I got to, my memory's got to be sharp. You know what I'm saying? I got to remember who's the main and who's not. Don't put that on me, bro. Don't do that. That's a lot of pressure. So, but it isn't just ravaging savages in the locker room, just talking about all the women that they sleeping with and stuff. No.
Yeah. Are your teammates that are in relationships, whether it be girlfriend, wife, loyal in those relationships to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. Yeah.
Is that a cop out by me saying to the best of your knowledge?
No, I mean, for one, this team is a little different, but everyone kind of has their own thing going on. So, in the building, we're really, really close. But outside the building, everyone got their families and stuff, So, they doing their own thing. But in my actual inner circle of guys who I'm in a group chat with, the most loyal guys I've ever been around. And they actually push the threshold of, being more accountable, fathers and stuff. I'm the one that's behind, single and still out here just
You're not behind.
I mean, I ain't even started in their eyes. I ain't even started.
Yeah, I don't think you're behind. You're just on a different path, and that's okay.
I'm cool with it.
So you're basically saying that it's not any more common in the NFL than it is in the outside world. And I find that hard to believe.
Okay, let me say it's not as, I would say generally speaking, no, it's not as common. And from just breaking down the population, I would say if we say 50%, if we say 60% of men cheat in the real world, I would say probably 60% of men cheat in the NFL.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Now, that's not to say that the opportunities aren't higher for men in the NFL just because of reasons that we don't even have to go down that lane.
Right.
Some people are attracted to that because they have money. Some people are attracted to that because they have status or whatever.
Right.
So what's coming their way may be a better crop. I don't know what you want to say, and there may be more plethora of that. But just from breaking down the numbers, if we say 60% of men cheat, which I would probably say 40% of men cheat.
Yeah.
I don't think over 50% of men cheat. I think it's about 40% of men cheat.
It's hard to study.
It's hard to study, right?
Yeah.
I would say about 40% of NFL cheats.
Okay.
So it's it's not so much an NFL thing. It's more so just a variety thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's the digital social media age is every day you can be oh man, I wonder what it'd be like talking to her. But slide down two more, I could also talk to her or vice versa him, so it's
well, and that's my whole thing though is yes, you're right about social media playing a role because that's this weird monster of a thing that we're starting, with my parents' generation. I talk to my mom sometimes. She's I don't know. I never had to deal with that, liking girls' pictures and all that stuff. Who are they following? I never had to worry about any of that because we didn't have that. So yes, as a whole population, as a species, that makes cheating probably higher.
Yeah.
But the difference is an NFL player on Instagram with a little blue check mark and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers and money and they're cute, liking a girl's picture is going to go a lot farther than my dude that I work with at work that works his 9 to 5. Not that that's not honorable, But so that's what I'm saying is like, I don't know. I get what you're saying. And it depends on the person, you know, like I don't think I went to school for this and I studied infidelity and cheating pretty heavily for 4 years.
What was that like? Did you
it
just scare yourself to death every day? Jeez,
I don't have
draining.
Sometimes I wish, you know why I had done it though, is because I was being affected by it personally. So I, like, to be completely transparent, I was in a long-term relationship and I felt like there was something wrong with me because I felt like I wanted to explore other options while I was in that relationship. And I have a lot of guilt about it still. But I also met him when I was 17 years old. And so that is more so what it had to do with than anything else. But that was one of the reasons that I threw myself into it. I had a communications degree. I also wanted to see how people talked about cheating, see how people talked about all these different things. I wrote some papers in college that won awards on cheating because it's one of those topics people get.
Read this. No, for real.
People get really worked up about it. The paper that I had wrote was a controversial take. So is my nature. But it was basically on, I think I titled it, I can't remember, but it was something about how cheating is not as simple as just being a bad person. You know, bad people cheat, but not everybody that cheats is a bad person. And so I kind of listed out a bunch of different reasons in this paper about the reasons. It's not a justification, but it's a deeper dive into why people cheat because it's a really common social phenomenon. If you're looking at it from a zoomed out perspective as an anthropologist or a sociologist or a psychologist, you see a phenomenon happening regularly in relationships and you ask, why is that happening? Why is this so common? And so my whole take and what I held off, but I was real close. I made the meeting, like almost filled out the application and everything to going to grad school for a thesis basically that says we're polyamorous by nature. We're not monogamous. We're not wired to be monogamous. There's very few species.
All people or just
all
men?
People. All people are wired to be polyamorous.
Okay.
And there's very few species in the animal kingdom that are actually monogamous. There's like, you can name it on your hand. But it's based, my whole theory is that that's why cheating happens, is because we are polyamorous, but because we instituted marriage and monogamy, you know, it used to be for economic reasons. You used to trade daughters and sons for land and peace and whatever. And then people started wanting to be, no, I don't want to spend my life with somebody that I don't love, that I don't care about. So then it started to become, like during the Renaissance
Who started
era.
Was that women or men?
So there was, it was
taking
during.
a stab at it. I'm gonna say women.
Well,
because
actually,
I mean, think about it. Like, if your dad's like, you got to go marry this guy just because his kingdom has this.
No,
many
it went
soldiers.
both ways. So it was during the Renaissance. Pretty sure that could be wrong. My memory could be faulty, but there's this thing called courtly love. So men and women would be married, or whatever their situation with other people, and like it would be women. I think it was usually women of higher status, but men. Like a man that she was actually in love with would come and sing to her and play her music. And that was the only way that they could be together because she was still married to somebody else. But that's why it's called courtly love, because they could never consummate it. It was unconsummated love. So that started this whole movement. And like the Renaissance was very artsy and all this stuff about marriage becoming about love. And so then, you know, and then you add religion on top of that and all the rules that come around, you know, a relationship with religion, which has nothing to do with biology and how we're biologically wired. There's a lot of different species around, or not species, well, species too, but civilizations that are like kind of untouched, like indigenous tribes that are polyamorous regularly.
I can believe it. I can believe. I mean, everything you're saying, I actually can believe it. You know, to a certain extent. I mean, I've had the idea of like, am I capable of loving one person my entire life? That's, you know, emotionally, physically. That's you know, all the lees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the lees. Like,
it's hard, and it's actually harder on women than it is on men.
Think so?
So it is. That's a fact. In different ways, it's harder sexually on women than it is on men, which most people would be surprised to hear that. But men have more testosterone naturally, and they're more visual. So men are more sexually stimulated just by the act of sex itself. Women are more turned on emotionally, and they have less testosterone. So it takes more, especially over time, to get them sexually involved. There's this misconception that women are more likely to get attached after having sex, which is not true because emotional connection is a human thing, not a female thing. The way that's rooted in this idea that women are more sexually stimulated when there's an emotional connection. But it doesn't mean that men want relationships any less than women do. Right. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a tangent. But, that's not me saying, like, I understand how people's brain works when it comes to cheating, because it's not a justification, but you're putting a lot of pressure on one person to check all of your boxes. You have multiple of every other kind of relationship in your life. No one blinks an eye when you have multiple kids. They're not like, you already have a kid. How are you going to give as much love and time and attention and money to another kid? No, you can have as many kids as you want and nobody bats an eye. Can you think about how insane it would be if you were only allowed to have one friend at a time? And that one friend and their one personality, they had to check all your boxes and meet all your needs and be your emotional support and be there for you 24/7. You have siblings. You can love your siblings. You can have cousins and multiple aunts. Every other relationship you have multiple of, except romantic relationships. And that's my whole theory. And it doesn't mean that it feels good, because I personally don't think that I could be in. I mean, I guess it would depend.
I was going to ask.
I don't know.
Are you polyamorous or?
I'm not polyamorous, but I think it would depend on the partner. I think that a lot of it has to do with security. So the reason that sounds so off to people is because it's primal in us to be territorial. It's limited resources. If you're pregnant and you're having a child, your natural instinct is to make sure that that child's going to be taken care of and your genes are going to carry on. So it's this territorialness, if that's a word, that's just programmed biologically in us. But if you take away the threat of the resource, then what's our true nature if there's no threat, right? Like if we evolve to a point, which I hope we get to the point as a species where we can evolve to the point where there's no war or jealousy or envy. I believe that that's our greater purpose as a civilization, as a species. I think that's why we're here, is to do that. So if you were to take away any sort of negative feeling or this idea that someone couldn't love you if they also love somebody else, then would it work? Like that's my thing.
Well, I have friends who are venturing in the polyamorous world.
It's becoming more common, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and he was really excited about it. He sounded like he was excited about it. He sounded like it was something that worked for him. Personally, I don't know. I never really gave much thought to it.
Yeah.
But I would love to read your thesis or just to hear more about it sometime, because I've definitely dipped and dabbled into that thinking as well. Like, are we supposed to be just monogamous creatures,
Right.
But
yeah, I can send it to you. We'll get into it. Yeah, I could talk forever about that topic, so I didn't mean to hijack the conversation.
You're good.
But
that was good information.
The last thing I wanted to cover with you, just before we go here, is kind of the way that people underestimate how demanding your job is. We talked about how you pay the price with your body, which I can fully understand because I had surgery on my foot from working at a day club and wearing heels all the time. Damn. So I get that you pay a cost that people that are working, normal average jobs, not that those are bad, but they just can't understand.
It's just different.
It's different.
Just different. You know what I mean? It's certain things that people who work at a desk job will deal with that I never will.
Right.
Like shit, maybe scoliosis or some shit. No, I'm not even trying to be funny. You carpal tunnel and all that type of that shit sucks, man. Like when you get older, all of it's not good. But
what does your day-to-day look like in terms of
just taking you through a day-to-day for me?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like as an athlete in general, I know it's different based on offense, defense, all that.
I mean, that and like off season, in season. So like I'll give you two different days: the off season day, the in season day. So off season day for me, when I'm ramping up, getting ready for training camp, I usually train like 2 to 3 times a day. Once early in the day, once midday, once at night. All of them different focuses, of course. You get more of your high volume work in the morning. You get more of your intentional slow burn or just like mentally challenging work in the afternoon. And then at night, you get like recovery work. See, a lot of people think recovery is like, I'm just laying down getting massages. I remember I had a girlfriend one time, and it was a long distance relationship, and she's always texting me, you always getting massages. I'm just like, you don't understand. You know what I mean? It's not even just a massage. Like if I say I'm getting, my PT person is coming, like we could be doing abs while he's doing soft tissue on like my psoas, trying to release my hip flexors, so many different things, and that shit hurts, and it's really demanding on your body. But I work out like 2 to 3 times a day in the off season, and obviously eating when I'm not eating, hydrating, sleeping when I'm not. But during the season, my day usually starts at like 5 a.m. in the morning. Work out in the morning time before meetings at 7:45, and then from about 7:45 to about 5 p.m. every day, I'm watching film, walking through, or practicing with my team, preparing for the next week's opponent. And then at night, usually as a team or as a group, we watch film after we get done with work from 5 to about 6:30, sometimes 7. So I'm getting home around 7:15, 7:30 every day. So I got just enough time to really just maybe watch film a little bit more, or just, hang out with my family if I, have family in town or something like that. But what I'm doing to take care of my body on the daily is really what's like most important. Like I'm working Sundays, Mondays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays from August 1st to however far we make it in the playoffs or whatever, and you got one day off, which is Tuesday. And I get all the time, people hitting me up, coming in town since I live in Vegas now. Everyone's coming through Vegas. Everyone's stopping here, want to hang out, and sometimes people get a little jaded at me because I'm like, bro, I'm not leaving my house.
Yeah.
I'm like, if it's Tuesday, I'm not leaving my house because that's the only day I have. That's the only day I have. And just on a practice standpoint, like practice in the NFL is pretty gruesome, man. You're running, you're hitting every day, and of course in the games that you're hitting is a very physical game. So like just what the guys are dealing with on the day-to-day. It's so funny. Like we run fast and we cut fast, but we all walk slow as hell, and we're all like limping and all got these different things, man. And it was funny. Today I was talking to a teammate of mine. His name is Jakob Johnson. He's a fullback and he's a physical player. He was like, man, I wonder what our bodies would feel like if we never play sports. Like, did you ever play sports?
Mm-hmm.
Were you like an athlete?
I played soccer, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you kind of understand it, but, like, at this point, I've been playing football for so long, I'm like, what does a non-football body feel like? Because, listen, I can honestly say I haven't been fresh. Like, my body hasn't felt fresh, truly, since before training camp.
Yeah.
And we're talking training camp started July 25th. And, man, we just started. It's August 2nd now. And I got
October
13.
October 2nd now.
I'm tripping. It's October 2nd now.
Just so that they understand.
Yeah, just so they know. I understand. It's October 2nd, 2023. No CTE over here. But, but like, I got a long way to go, man. I got 13 more games to play. I'm like, man, I haven't felt fresh since, And that's part of it that comes with the territory where it's like, you're not going to feel fresh.
Right. Because
you got to prepare. You got to, take care of your body. You got to work out to stay strong. So it's just a commitment that I don't think a lot of people will be cut for.
Right. People don't understand what goes into it,
They
for sure.
They don't, man. It's a lot.
Well, I commend you for it. I know how it feels to pay the price with your body for a job. All right, Ameer, that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for cutting some time out of your busy schedule to kind of share your perspective on this. If you guys have any additional questions or want to continue the conversation, I'll link Ameer's Instagram. You can send him a direct message on there, and I'll have that available on all my social media channels, including YouTube. And I will see you all next season to talk more elephants.